Command has said that if a conventional war broke out with Russia, Russia would win it in 60 hours. And Europe would simply be overrun, and that NATO is incapable of doing anything about that. So the war would be nuclear, and there's no winners of that war. Life would simply cease. So it's very important in that sense that the political organization and military organization that Washington has set up and for its imperial uses, for expanding its empire, opposing its empire, be broken up. And so that's why it's important for Britain to leave, because I think it would begin an unraveling, particularly now that the EU is used by the richer northern countries, the Dutch, the Germans, to loot the poor southern countries like Portugal and Greece, Spain and Italy.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably have...
They call them the pigs, don't they? Portugal, Italy, let's see, what was the other? Ireland, Greece, and Spain. They call them pigs. That's their acronym for it. That's a contempt.
Well, it's much more than that, because what they do, they go to somewhat corrupt governments and say, hey, borrow all this money, and then you can buy all these things from us, and here's a bag full of money for doing it. And
yes.
So that's how Greece got indebted.
And we've seen that for a very long time from the IMF and the World Bank. Under McNamara, he would go into these third world countries and he would loan them money that they would use not for building infrastructure or anything that would help them to make themselves wealthier, but to create a welfare state. And people accuse them of being rent seekers. And now we see them doing that in Europe. This is a long pattern, something they've been criticized for decades for doing, but nobody ever stopped them from doing it throughout Central and South America, the developing countries, and now they're doing it in Europe to take away their money as well, aren't they?
Well, they get them indebted so they can loot them.
Mm-hmm.
So to sell off their national assets to first world corporations at pennies on the dollar. Like the Greeks are forced to sell off their municipal water systems, their ports, their protected national islands. They're forced not to have a welfare system, but to dismantle so that they can pay the banks. For example, the Greek pensions have been slashed to the bone, public employment slashed to the bone, medical care, education, and that money instead is transferred to the Dutch and German banks. So, the whole process was described some years ago by John Perkins in Confessions of an Economic Hitman. So what we were saying is that with the EU now turning on its own members, the Greeks, the Irish, the Portuguese, the Spanish, the Italians, there's plenty of reason for the system to unravel. So if a major member were to vote to exit, such as Britain, that would probably be the death knell of the EU, and that would in turn lead to the unraveling of NATO. And therefore, this would remove the ability of Washington to cause conflicts. It would tend to leave Washington more isolated, unable to control the other part of the Western world, which serves as a cover for Washington's aggression. So that is the real most important reason for getting England out. I don't think England would be permitted to leave. I suspect that if the vote was to come out to leave, it would simply not be permitted. In fact, I doubt they would permit a vote to come to that conclusion.
That's right. That's right.
The vote.
We're going to continue to talk to Dr. Roberts when we come back. We're going to talk about the aftermath of the shootings, both in the UK and in Orlando, and his analysis of both of those events and the impact that they could have. We'll be right back with Dr. Paul Craig Roberts. I'm David Knight. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, and we're talking to Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, the former Assistant Secretary of the Treasury during the Reagan administration, co-founder of the Reaganomics, and we had an article of Dr. Roberts back on June 14th, beginning of last week, saying it will be impossible to get any truth out of the Orlando shooting. I wanted to follow up with Dr. Roberts and get his comments on the many strange things that have come to light out of Orlando, as well as, of course, how it is being used to say that we have to take everybody's gun rights, not just this guy. And we can't do any background checks on the people that Obama is bringing in by the tens of thousands. No, we're going to take away your Second Amendment rights to protect yourself, to defend yourself against the government. Your comments, Dr. Roberts.
Well, I don't think we know what happened, and that's what should stun us. Because if you have 103 people shot, there has to be massive evidence all over the place. Yet we've not seen videos of the numerous ambulances, the numerous emergency medical technicians that would be tending to 103 casualties, half of them dead, half of them wounded, according to reports. I challenged my readers, of which there are a great number, to help me to prove the official story. And we found we were unable to find any evidence for it other than statements of government officials. We don't see the massive evidence that would be apparent if such a mass shooting actually occurred. So what I see in this is the same sort of pattern I see in other incidences. There's a story prepared, and the minute the announcement of the event is given, the story is given. Mm-hmm. So we get the explanation with the announcement of the event. So somehow the government knows instantly who did it and all of that. So, but in lieu of bodies, we get photographs and lists of names.
That's true. That's true. And, of course, now we're now finding out that the psychiatrist who supposedly evaluated him so he could work for G4S, so he could get the statewide firearms license, she's now saying, I wasn't, they put my signature on that form. I wasn't even in Florida there. I wasn't even working in Florida at the time. And yet that form was used to get him the license that he needed to work for the private security firm, the largest in the world, G4S. Then it was used to get his statewide firearms license when he was being investigated by the FBI all these different times, and they kept shutting this down. One of the times, the FBI director, Comey, says, well, you know, he was also holding this license from this large private security firm. So all of this stuff is built on this house of cards, and yet these people tell us that they're going to vet everyone for firearms, even though we see the disaster that they did here. Even if you believe their official story, it's starting to unravel around the edges as far as this phony background check. And, of course, a watch list is nothing but a background check. But they don't even want to do background checks on the people that they're bringing into this country. So the whole thing is based on a lie. It's based on smoke and mirrors, isn't it, the conclusions that they offer us?
Well, my point is, how is it we can't find out?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's really what should puzzle people, is how hard it is to get any kind of definite handle on it. I see from reports that the media flocked to the hospital, but only to interview one of the victims, this guy Angel, whatever his name is. So you have all the press interviewing one victim. Where are the other 52? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's like Sandy Hook. We get photos and lists of names. We don't see any body bags. We don't see any ambulances, any emergency medical technicians. The whole thing, and what's so astonishing is that they feel confident to pull these things off over and over and over, and people seem to be okay that all they get are government statements. And they're repeated endlessly by the media. We don't ever get any investigation, and nobody ever shows any real evidence. There are always crisis actors on the scene. And what you see is a population that's just so gullible, it has no chance of protecting its liberty or its gun rights or anything else. I said some time ago, I pointed out some time ago, David, that of all of the provisions in the Bill of Rights that make law a shield of the people, The only remaining one is the Second Amendment. And
that's right.
The Second Amendment is inconsistent with the police state, which we now have. The Congress seems to be okay with the police state. The bulk of the population is okay with it. The legal community is okay with it. We continue to have the violation of habeas corpus, due process, privacy, endless spying without warrants. All of these things are not only unconstitutional, they're illegal under U.S. statutory law, and yet nothing is done. There's been just this acceptance of a police state in order to save us from terrorism that we really don't even know if it exists or not. I mean, all the terrorist events seem to be FBI stings. You know, the FBI admits, the public was never in danger. We caught them before they could do anything. But we all also get the story that the FBI organized them in this fake terrorist attack so they could be arrested. And we find out the real reason the FBI does this is that Congress gave a supplemental appropriation of several $billion a year for the FBI to be proactive and prevent attacks. And so as there are no real attacks, they have to go out and organize them so they collect this several $1 billion.
It's kind of like the watch list. We were talking about this on Friday, and Rob Dew came in with a list of all these people. Listen to all the people who had a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, an 18-month-old toddler. All these people were on the no-fly list. Right. They were told they could not fly. So we're getting false positives. You had Ted Kennedy, who was on the no-fly list as he was a senator. You got all of these different things happening, and yet we're told that that needs to now be a checklist to take away people's rights. And even the FBI director said from a pragmatic standpoint, he told the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, he said, if we really are investigating these people, you're going to alert them to the fact that they're being investigated by saying, no, you can't buy a gun. So he says even from a pragmatic standpoint, it doesn't wash, but it doesn't wash from a constitutional issue.
David, there's nobody to investigate.
All right.
The whole thing is a hoax.
Right.
So and the FBI knows it.
Right.
But
we're just trying to reach out to the people who have one foot in the official story and one foot in reality. I mean, we had Dr. Roberts, we had Gretchen Carlson, I don't know if you saw this or not, on Fox News, and she comes out in favor of an assault weapon ban. When she was questioned and people came after her on Twitter, she made the amazing statement that first of all, the thing everybody says, well, it doesn't have anything to do with hunting weapons. But she said the Second Amendment was written when we didn't even have firearms. It was written before firearms were invented. You stupid people, I don't even know how to deal with you. You're so ignorant.
Yeah, well, why did it say the right to bear arms?
Yeah, I guess that was slingshots or crossbows or something in her mind. I don't know what she thought that was.
Well, whatever she says, it's really not what's important. What's important is the lack of skepticism on the part of the public, yes, of official statements. And this enables the government to pull off the most transparent kinds of operations. It enables the media never to investigate. I mean, why didn't the media go to the morgue or to the hospital? Or why, if we've got 103 casualties, there've got to be ambulances all over the place. Why don't they show them? Where are the emergency medical teams? Where nothing is ever shown, and the media never wonders or asks or says.
Well, that's one thing we do need, and that is more skepticism. We need to say, show me the money, show me the evidence. We need to always question anything the government puts out there, especially when they're coming after our individual liberty. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Paul Craig Roberts. Again, his website is paulcraigroberts.org. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight in this last segment of our Sunday show. I want to talk about what's going on with this, what I believe is a clear false flag in the Brexit vote, and what they're really trying to put out here as they're being labeled as racist and far-right extremists. They are not. And I'm going to tell you why in just a moment. Before we get to that, I want to tell you about our specials. We have the Alexa Pure water filters, now 20% off at InfoWarsStore.com. That's everything from our largest systems down to the shower filter. And of course, you can remove 99.9999% of bacteria, disinfectants, volatile organic contaminants, and hormones. You can even filter water from lakes, rivers, streams, wells, and of course, the dirtiest of all, your municipal water system. It's great for everything. That's our high-end, high-quality, gravity-fed Alexa Pure Pro water filtration system all the way down.